He's a veteran of our Defence Forces. He served in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and he joins me today after the first sitting day of the new Royal Commission into veterans' suicides. Thanks for joining us, Phil. You've supported and pushed for this for so long. What do we know after the first day of hearings?
Thanks for having me, CK. Mate, it started off quite slow. There was a bit of an opening of how it was going to run, what people could expect. But, you know, what we want to see is the Royal Commissioners be quiet and let the people that have been bereaved and affected by suicide ideation, people who put forward documentation and submissions to be able to voice their concerns, what's happened to them, what's happened to their friends, what's happened to their family, and get these commissioners just to take it all in, whether it's through open hearings or closed hearings. This is the time now where we need to ensure that there's the support around the people that are going to be telling some stories that are the most, you know, sad and traumatic and shameful that on the people that should have been looking after them. So this now, it's open in Brisbane, but it's time for the commissioners to keep the mouth shut, open the ears and take it all in so they can give good recommendations on how we can stop our most bravest from taking their lives.
Indeed, that's the important point here, is to show some respect and consideration for our veterans so we can look to some changes in the future that can help save lives. But during this period, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the national broadcaster, has been running a lot of stories portraying our diggers as war criminals. And I want to show you a clip of one of them because it's been pulled apart at the moment. This is a story that was run around about this time, just over a year ago. So it was October 2020 by ABC journalist Michael Willesee. And in it, these are the shocking allegations made against Australian soldiers by one former US soldier. Have a look.
He says the Australians called the US pilots to pick them up, as well as 7 prisoners. But the pilot told them there was only room on the aircraft for 6.
And you just heard a silence, and then we heard a pop, and then they said, okay, we have 6 prisoners. And so it was pretty apparent to everybody involved in that mission that they had just killed a prisoner, that we had just watched them like catch and hogtie.
The former Marines crew chief says after hearing the gunshot, none of the Americans on the helicopters supporting the Australian commandos said a word because they knew their communications were being recorded. It was only later, back at their base, that they talked about what had happened on the ground.
This isn't like a heat of the moment call where you're trying to make a decision. It was a very deliberate decision to break the rules of war.
Just a shocking allegation of cold-blooded murder by a person who saw nothing, who says he heard something. I think I might have mentioned Michael Willesee there. That's Mark Willesee, not the late, great Michael Willesee, and they are no relation. But this is a shocking allegation. Now, you'd be aware of Heston Russell. He and other veterans involved in this have been pursuing this with the ABC. They've confirmed that none of this stacks up. There's no evidence to support this, that some of the operations they're actually referring to didn't occur, that there's no criminal investigation run by our Defence Force into any such allegation. Ben Fordham on 2GB has been doing some great work corroborating this as well with veterans. What can be done to stop people running with such outlandish allegations with no evidence when we're trying to talk about the mental health and psychological well-being of our veterans?
Well, first, mate, we can wind back to the Brereton Report, where we saw trial by media on our most bravest. We saw armchair politicians sitting there in their $5,000 suits yelling how bad our soldiers have been and how this makes them feel, when all that was allegations. There was no proof of evidence. There was nothing. We saw it then. We saw media outlets like the ABC running that all these soldiers, all these SAS operators and others were guilty of war crimes, which has come out to be factually incorrect, and these people have been cleared. And that has been a massive toll, taken a massive toll on them and their families. And we're seeing it again. There needs to be a burden of proof. Now, that guy that you just saw on there, I've been in helicopters, I've been in combat. I can tell you now that there is no way that, that our special forces units that most of the time, or near all the time, have suppressors on their rifles anyway. So there is no sound or a loud bang or loud pop if you're in contact. Coming from a helicopter over a radio that for some reason was still transmitting when this happened, because you have to press the button for it to transmit. It's garbage. And the problem here is there's no burden of proof. If I stand up and say something in the media or anywhere or accuse someone, I get sued. I get in trouble. The media brands me, this bad person. But when the media do it, regardless of who it is, whether it's the ABC or not, it's these things happen. Garbage. You're wrecking lives. You're wrecking lives. People are absolutely falling nearly off a cliff because of this. People are going into mental health hospitals. They're poor mental health. They're people that have attempted suicide. This is the outcome of what you do when you target our brave men and women. And it's because of the media that we're seeing a higher rate, because of the attack on our people. Something needs to happen. I don't know what it is. But an apology is not good enough. It needs to go further than that. Accountability is everything.
Well said, Phil. I could not agree with you more. Thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, CK. Thanks for having me, mate.